Hello poison dart froggers, bioactive vivarium enthusiasts, and fellow YouTubers. Dart Frog Ninja here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up a master springtail culture. Before we get started, let me explain what a springtail is. Springtails are hexapods. Let me see if I can show you some. Do you see the little white dots moving around? Those are the springtails. Now they get their name because they have an appendage on the bottom of their abdomen that allows them to spring into the air. This is usually used as a defensive mechanism, hence the spring. They are detrivores, meaning they eat decaying plant and animal matter, so they serve as the perfect vivarium janitor. Now, a master culture is this large culture you see here, this sterilite tub. It's going to be where I house my main supply of springtails, and where they're going to breed. From the master culture, I can make smaller cultures, like this deli cup, and I can also use them to seed other vivariums. Now, let's get started. Let's talk about substrate, and what mediums you want to use to house those springtails. Now the best medium in my opinion is charcoal, but you can also use plantation soil, eco earth, or cocoa fiber to house them. Now charcoal in my opinion is the best, because not only will it purify the water, springtails like high humidity and there will be about an inch of water below the substrate, but it's less likely to attract mites to your culture. So what you want to do first is you're going to get yourself some horticultural charcoal. I picked this up from a greenhouse, but you can probably find it in places like Lowe's or Home Depot in the plant section. If you can't find it, just ask somebody for horticultural charcoal, as people use it to keep orchids and cacti. So, you're going to want to have about a 3-inch layer of charcoal in your culture. Now I've already measured this out, and I put it in this pot and I rinsed it with distilled water. Make sure not to use tap water, as the chlorine and other chemicals will harm your springtails. It's best to use distilled water or reverse osmosis, otherwise known as RO water. So basically, what I'm going to do now is pour the washed charcoal into the sterilite tub. Just go ahead and pour out a nice even layer. And now I recommend using latex gloves, because this is a very messy process. So you're going to want to try to avoid getting it all on your clothes and all over the floor as well. So go ahead and spread out all the charcoal right out of this pot. Get a nice even 3-inch layer. Going to do one last scrape to try to get one little bit out. Okay, that looks like 3 inches. So next I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use some distilled water, and I'm going to pour it into the culture, and you're going to want about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of water at the base of your culture. This is going to help keep the humidity levels high for your springtails. Alright, so we got that set up, and it was pretty simple. Next, you're going to take your springtail container. There's several ways I can do this. Now, this tub is filled with soil, so I'm going to try and tap them out. Hopefully they'll come out. Unfortunately, it's not working out the way I want it to. So I could dump this whole tub in if I wanted to, but I don't recommend it. So what I can try next is I can try and flood the culture with water, as springtails will float to the top, and then I can try and dump them in. So I'm flooding it now, and as you can see they are floating at the top. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have to pour it in and try and get as many of the springtails in on the first pour as possible. I don't think I'll be able to get everything out on one pour, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to try to get as little dirt in the culture as possible. Okay. Yep, they're coming out. Unfortunately, like I said, I bought this culture from somebody who used soil as a substrate, so it's a bit harder to get all the springtails out. So I'm going to go ahead and try and flood it again, and I'm going to try and dump out the remaining springtails into the culture. Alright, I'm going to continue to pour out. I think I might have gotten the majority of them. Okay, but unfortunately, as I can see in the culture, there are still quite a few springtails mixed in the soil. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to dump the soil on top of the charcoal. I'm not a fan of doing this, and I don't recommend it, but you have to do what you have to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and dump the remaining container contents into my culture. Alright, here we go. And just tap it in and try and tap out all the substrate that's in there to make sure I get every single springtail. Tap it in. I'm going to smooth it out onto the one side. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to make sure I get every springtail that's left in the culture, and they may have laid eggs in the soil. I'm going to give one last rinse, like so, to make sure that there's nothing left in here, and I'm going to go ahead and pour the remaining contents of this container into my culture. Alright, looks like everything's out of the tub and into my culture. So now that the springtails are in the culture, you might ask yourself, what do I feed them? What you're going to want to feed them, and what I highly recommend, is brewer's yeast. This is a great feeding supply, and it molds quick, and you don't need a lot of it, just a pinch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a nice size pinch over on the charcoal side, just like so. Okay, and I'm going to add probably a little bit more in, as this is the master culture and this is the setup. I want to ensure that they get enough food. So there we go, one more little pinch. Alright, just like that. And now, I don't recommend feeding them anything but brewer's yeast, but you can. Now, the reason why I don't recommend it is because you want to avoid grain-based foods, as these will attract mites. And these mites are detrivores as well, and they'll end up outcompeting your springtails for food, and the culture will crash, and you'll end up with 0 springtails. So, basically right now, you're all done. All you have to do is pop a top on this and store it in a nice cool place with indirect lighting, definitely out of sunlight, as that'll dry out the culture and kill your springtails. Now make sure to at least pop open the top for a few minutes, maybe like once a week, besides feedings, as CO2 can build up from the growth of the mold and then kill the entire culture. Alright guys, there you have it. Now this is my first video, and it didn't go exactly how I wanted it to go, but it is what it is. So please feel free to like, don't dislike, comment, and subscribe for more Dart Frog related videos. Thanks for watching, and as always, YouTubers, frog on!